your Pennsylvania Dutch uncle sharing some information that I think you guys ought to know. This is how my job turned out. And I have two facets to this because this brace for the fuel tank on this truck had to be modified. And I mounted my bracket a little cockeyed. I don't know what kind of penance I'm going to pay for that. But the tank does fit up there, and maybe I'll be able to fit the bracket on there, maybe trim the hanger a little bit. That was all my doing. That was all rushing through this. This was a very extensive job on this frame. As I said about the Rust Belt in Pennsylvania, it's a terrible place to live, especially if you have a truck and it has to sit out all year round versus, you know, you can keep another one in the garage very nice, neatly, you know, and not drive it, so to speak. I got a bare spot there. And I wanted to cover some products here. So this kit is very ill-fitting, especially these brackets on the inside. I'm going to cover this in here. They're very loose. I don't know why they do it. I keep saying I hate that in the video when people do it. I'm trying to choose my words where they did not do their job. Some of this Chinese stuff, it's more aggravation and work than it's worth. But it did save the truck, and that's the way the gussets turned out. That's what they look like. That'll fool any state inspection mechanic. However, I did find another carnage spot on the frame that's got to get addressed, and that's a guy with a higher pay grade than me to address that. What do I mean by a higher pay grade? Well, that guy has a lift. So let's go through and we're going to discuss, I think I have things a little jumbled here. We're going to discuss Raptor, okay, because this is not a hardener, it's actually a reducer, and it's not as good as the stuff that I use, either the PPG or the Viatech. And that is the coating right here. It's a full bottle, never opened. And that is the SEM, which I do not like, and I'm going to discuss why. Especially when you look at this frame. I like the Raptor liner because what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat this frame with a urethane, a clear, high yield epoxy clear. If you want to save a truck, folks, these new trucks, and I'm sorry I got my dirty gloves on. These new trucks and stuff, they're coming through the factories with defects, and people are buying the shit. And what's happening now with this market tightening up, the big three are not, even Toyota and Nissan, they're not producing a lot of vehicles. There is no overstock to be bought, and you're going to pay top dollar for stuff, and a lot of it has problems. I'm talking about real problems. Electrical, frame, there's a lot of stuff. It's not coming through with coatings like these. And that was another thing I wanted to mention. If you have one of these Silverados and the frame is not terminal, I would replace the spring hangers, look for spots that are bad, maybe even replace these cross members. They were made out of peanut brittle. They literally crumbled in my hand at spots. There's some kind of alloy steel that actually, I've never quite seen steel separate. It's got to be because they're recycling the metals, and the bonding agent, whatever it is, it breaks totally down. So if you're going to buy one of these newer vehicles, 9 chances out of 10, you better save what you're driving right now, because you're probably going to buy the same problems, if not worse, with the new stuff. And I would say the new stuff, what I'm seeing, people are coming here, and I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to work on it. And they get mad at me. And why don't you want to add it? I already know what this stuff is, and I already cut apart a Nissan. I don't know if they've changed anything yet, but it was horrible. It was horrible, and that was at the other shop. Like I said, I moonlight a few places. I'm a moonlighter, okay? I'm retired. I like to do what I please. I always tell people I'm like an old tomcat, like my cats. I like to come and go. I don't have a noose around my neck. Ladies, I am single. I do clean up very well with soap and water. A lot of it, and you got to scrub really hard, especially my back. I like that, and scratch me behind my ears, forget that one. All right, the Raptor liner wins because you can reduce this. You can reduce this just between the two bottles. Now, if you try to harden it, I'm having a beer. It's after 4. And I've been hankering for a beer all day. I didn't drink all week, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, you got to have one. And I had some in the fridge. I'm fully stocked. What's the problem with this? In the can, it's just thicker than thick. And I don't care what type of reducer you put in it, you're going to end up taking a vessel, a cup, a bowl, or something, a mixing cup, bowl, and you're going to have to pour it out, and you're going to have to mix this stuff. So, and if you're not going to use all of it, you're kind of shot, and you can't really put the lid on this stuff. This turns to like a rubber, and that was what went wrong with this truck. First of all, I tried Sherwin-Williams products. I used to make a concoction with Sherwin-Williams and urethane clear coat. Well, most of the Sherwin-Williams products now, even for metal and steel, they introduce rust right away because they're all water-based. So what happened was, I really screwed up. That screwed the frame on this truck, so I'll never do it to another one. And that's the reason why I'm preferring the Raptor liner, because this actually tightens around the steel and the rust. So that's why so many people, when you see bed liners and it's actually rusting out on the ribs, a lot of that's coming out from underneath the ribs of a bed. And what I mean by the ribs of a bed, I'm going to take you off of here for a minute, because a lot of people don't know what I call the ribs of a bed, the supports. You're going to find a lot of vehicles rusting out right here. And actually it's topside under the bed liner. Has really nothing to do with the bed liner. Okay, this Raptor liner really does a superior job. I'm actually going to put like another coat over this at places, because this truck, I've got a pile of money in this toad, and it's still not on the road yet. We're working on it. We got the 4-barrel carb out the other day. But my mainstream is, you're going to get road salt, and you're going to get those carcinogens, okay, on the frame. So you want something that's going to hold up. SEM, I don't care how I mixed SEM, and I'm coughing from the urethane stink. The SEM does not mix well. It just does not. You find soft spots and you find hard spots after you've sprayed or rolled it. I don't care if you brush or roll it, and that's what convinced me that it's a bad product just to invest your money in, because it hardens real fast in the container, but when you feel the spots on the frame, you're going to feel soft, tacky spots. Well, you know what? You don't feel that with the Raptor liner. After about 2 hours, 3 hours with the Raptor liner, that's why I'm making the video, because I got to wait about another hour. There are some tacky spots. That never goes away on the SEM, and then you spray over it. For some reason, the rust will leach right out the back of it, and it'll start peeling layers off these peanut brittle, whatever they're made out of, the frames. Now the other thing, coughing from urethane, not cigarettes, through my old video. If you have one of these newer Silverados, from 01 on up, if you heat that stuff that they have on the frame, it turns to like a cardboard. It's actually a formaldehyde, because it smells just like leather when you heat it. That's what's in it. Old horses, whatever, they smelt that down, and they used to use it years ago. That's part of what saddle soap is. It's a melted down frickin' horse leather. It's the byproduct when you heat the fats of meat and the skins of an animal. And that's exactly what's on these frames from the factory. And I'm sorry about coughing through, but the smell here from the product is without a mask on and stuff like that, it's not that bad. It's drying, but that's why it's emanating an odor, is because it's drying. So you're going to have some things to contend with. Number one is to get as much of that formaldehyde crap off the original frame, and I'm telling you, the wire wheel, okay, the wire wheel is your best thing to strip these frames. And you're not going to do it in 10 minutes. You're not going to do it in a day's time. You might spend 3 days, like I did, taking the frame down, getting most of the rust off. And there's other tools like the little angle grinders, the little air grinder and stuff that you can get in there. Okay, I'm not using the right terminology. People probably know what I mean. Has a 90-degree on them, or like a whizzer or whatever. You can even use a whizzer. I don't necessarily, because the whizzer likes to skip around. When you have the angle grinder, the die grinder, when you have a die grinder with a metal, say like they make sanding discs, they make grinding discs. Either one is good for the job, okay? But the wire wheel is the only one that's going to get you that you're going to be able to weld the steel. And then that comes to another spot where I'm going to close my video of education about doing these frames. A lot of people do not know about brushable seam sealer. It's still 80 degrees up here in Pennsylvania. They said the weather's supposed to take a poop on Thursday. Let's hope not. It was 80 some degrees. I use a brushable seam sealer over my welds. Why do I do that? Okay. I don't care if it's a gas weld, the worst weld, but the best worst weld is a flux core weld, because it will weld to dirty steel. You're not going to get 1,000,000% penetration. You're going to get barely any. You're going to either be blowing through the steel with a gas weld, especially the crap rusty steel, or your weld's just not going to stick right. Flux core is your answer when you're doing a dirty frame, an old frame of an older vehicle. Okay, but it has a byproduct, is the weld is highly acidic. So if you do things outside in your driveway like I do here, there's no way in hell even I would take this in my garage and do it with all the dirt that it makes. I don't know if I showed you guys. I mean, I had literally buckets and buckets. This is my second bucket of rust and crap. So doing this outside is, you're not going to do this. I would not do this in my garage. Now, there are people where you have constant weather systems in areas of the country, especially down south, the Carolinas. A lot of people work inside, but they contend with that. They have a big enough place because they don't have to heat it. Up here in the Northeast, the places are not that big because we got to heat that shit. So down south, you can get it under cover, but I would not do this in. And not to mention the dirt goes all over everything. And that's why we covered Holly Ann over here, our project truck, because I'm going to do urethane, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I don't need it all over this, her. And even, like I said, even the rust was flying. There was debris in the air. A big mushroom cloud was hanging over this truck with the angle grinder, grinding all that rusty crap and brine off the frame. And then I power washed it down, and I left it sit. And we even though it's been a dry summer, I blessed the dry weather, because that frame got a chance to dry out thoroughly. And the spots where I suspected there was still moisture, I heated them with a torch so this stuff would adhere. So that's a way to go about your frames. But as far as product is concerned, stay away from the SEM until they improve it. I thought somebody was here. Anyway, that is my message. I don't care if it's their bed liner. It's the same thing as the frame coat. The frame coat has a little more of a gloss. It has a little more of a urethane paint. But you can always put a clear over this, a cheap clear, or an expensive clear. Like I have to depend on this, because as I said, I'm not buying another truck. Okay? You just can't trust what's out on the market. 90% of the stuff that's out there on the lots right now, they're the problem children. You look them up. I just went to look at a Silverado, and most of the 2015, 16s, and 17s with all those problems, that's what's on the lots. And they want $25,000 for a used one. I'm not paying it, and I'm not a sucker. I don't have sucker written on my forehead. And I told the salesman that. I said the most I give him for it is $4,500, because all I'm buying is the chassis and the body. I'm going to put another motor and transmission in it. There's no way in hell I'm going to put up with that AFM crap. And Ford has those the Ego Boosts. You guys with your Fords and your Ego Boost, I get 450 horsepower. Yeah, well, I don't care what you get. You get nothing when it's hot and humid like it's been all summer here. And we had very little rain with the heat and humidity. But I've seen quite a few of those Ego Boosts sitting all over the roads, because all those coolers on them was frost over. Dodge, I can't say so much. I stay away from the Chrysler products. The parts are overpriced, and half the time you can't get the right parts for them. I don't know whether the parts networks are doing that, whether it's a conspiracy. I've had Chrysler products here, can't get parts for them, not the right parts. It's always something with the VIN number. It's one thing after another. And the boss man is here telling me it's time to get the urethane on here. So I'm going to mix urethane And I endorse my message with you folks. Hopefully, hopefully, somebody will take heed to what I said when you're doing one of those frames. And one of these frame kits, get ready to modify that front brace, because it is not going to fit the way you think it should. And the other thing with that frame brace, if it's not under the bed, okay, if it blocks this gap, and it is partly in the gap, snow and stuff is going to gather in here. And that's why I left some of that frame coating, the stuff I'm using there, the Raptor liner, because I'm going to coat this real good, because I know damn well some of the snow is going to gather in there, and the ice. It's just not a good mix. That front frame brace is kind of like a curse. God bless. By the way, I think I heard the FBI. Did the FBI raid? Did the FBI raid the Coyote and the Roadrunner? Jesus Christ! I didn't even know they were Republicans, but they raided the Coyote and the Roadrunner. And now the Roadrunner, he got in a fight with the Coyote even big time. Coyote came over and said he found some doggy things in his wife's drawer and some pictures of the Roadrunner. I don't know what they're doing, but anyway, the FBI's on that one. God bless with these goofballs running our country right now. China, Nancy Pelosi, they're going to pull something before. They do not want this November election to take place. Folks, heed my message. Something drastic is going to happen in November or just before the election. They can't scare people anymore with the pandemic. It's not working. You can't panic me. The only thing I wear rubber gloves for and a mask is when I'm doing this shit. That's the only thing that's toxic. I'm not wearing them down to Lowe's because there's a pandemic about. You're not going to stop a bacterial or a viral or an airborne disease, not with a mask that's not even rated for drywall dust. Now they got to cook up something new and meaner. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be another 9/11 style attack on the country. That was discussed last week at the State Department. That's why I didn't get to make a video last week. I had 2 meetings last week. One of the meetings I walked into, saw who was there, didn't like them, I walked out. The other meeting I did attend the next day, and then I drove home with a lot of sorrow in my heart for what this country's coming to. Thanks for watching my videos.